Hello, property nomads. Hope you're well. The advantages and disadvantages of both freehold and leasehold. This is what we're going to explore in this episode. This has come off the back of an article that was done by the which is a paper in the UK, and it's powerless housing association leaseholders hit with unexplained £3,000 service charge. Now, as you're probably aware, the housing sector is not perfect. Nothing in life is perfect. Yet there are some significant advantages and disadvantages of both freehold and leasehold. But we're going to go through this article very quickly first, just to highlight one of the key disadvantages, I think, of leasehold, and then we'll go into a summary of what is better, or what we think is better, and for what reasons. This article focuses on people living in an estate in London. They've been hit with a sudden service charge bill of up to apparently £3,000 each, which is essentially doubling their annual costs. And they say that they are powerless to fight it. It's leaseholders in flats on an estate in East London. Apparently, they were only told in June about the surprise charge. They claim that they've not been given a proper explanation for it. I'll take their word for it. I've got no proof of this, but I'll take their word for it. Some say that they have had to consider taking out a loan or cancelling holidays in order to cover the unexpected bill from their housing association. Social housing campaigners claiming that the incident is further evidence of why ministers need to step in to overhaul service charge rules in order to protect leaseholders, arguing that the current system is being abused. Housing associations, the article just goes to say what housing associations normally do. As normal practice, leaseholders on this particular estate, which is called the One Stratford estate, they're charged an estimated service charge at the start of each financial year, and they may be asked to pay at a later date, to pay a balancing charge if the actual spend was higher than the estimate. The average balance when they were given the bill on this estate, the average balancing charge per flat was apparently £1,808.87. However, on some places, they were given bills as high as £3,700. Basically, not very good at all. Apparently, that's leaving some people paying more than £7,000 alone this year in service charges. Yet it's another blow for those living in flats, some that are currently unable to sell their homes as they are affected by the post-Grenfell cladding scandal. Basically, I'll try and keep this as YouTube friendly as humanly possible. It's a bit of a mess, and it's a bit of a mess for numerous reasons. There's two sides to take. There's two sides of the coin here. Number one is that whenever you buy a home, whenever you're doing it, wherever you're doing it, it's important that you get the right professional advice. It's important that you get the solicitors involved. It's important that you're asking questions such as, what is my ground rent? What is my service charge? Are there any ground rents? Are there any service charges? If so, are they going to double every year? Now that sounds scary, but there have been issues where these things can double each year because it's in the fine print of the contract. So you've got to be asking questions like this. So that falls on caveat emptor, buyer beware. So that falls on you and I. If we were buying such a place, we need to be asking these questions. Secondly, your solicitor, if they're any good, should be pointing this stuff out to you as well. They should be raising these concerns. If the service charges are high, if the ground rents are high, these concerns should be being raised by a solicitor as well. So that's that. So the shoe's got to be on both feet. You've got to be doing your homework. You've got to be asking your questions. Your legal team, your power team have got to be doing their homework as well. They've got to be asking questions as well. It's very important that these things need to be done. On the flip side of all of this, people will continue to get away with it if they can. We've had a lot of issues with Grenfell, that massive fire that killed a lot of people and has done a hell of a lot of damage. If you've never heard of that Insta before, please Google it. I'm speaking primarily to overseas listeners here. Do go and Google that, the Grenfell disaster, and you'll start to get an understanding of the terror that occurred, that evening. And that's had a massive knock-on effect, because then it looks like a lot of house builders, home builders, have been taking shortcuts, and all of this has been, all of this has been signed off, and the story goes on and on and on and on and on. And that's for a different podcast. Point being is that these people who have bought flats which are leasehold in England and Wales, predominantly, they're falling foul of service charges, ground rents, and it's either a mixture of that they haven't been asking the questions when they've been buying, the legal team hasn't been pointing things out, or they're just getting taken for a ride by the freeholder, and perhaps because it might have been written into the contract in the first place. So this just a perfect example of how not good that system is. But let's go on to freehold and leasehold. So freehold, in layman's terms, you own the land, you own the building, it's yours. Unless there's any covenants on it, then the building's completely yours. There's no issues there. You're very unlikely to have ground rent. You're very unlikely to have service charges. So you've got more freedom. That's the big advantage of a freehold. You've got the freedom. Fantastic. The disadvantage, though, is if something goes wrong. For example, let's just say your roof falls off, or you've got an issue with guttering, or you get issues with damp, or whatever it might be, then as a freeholder, you are then responsible to fix that. And that can be, given the inflation and the cost of doing things at the moment, that number could be quite high. So that's a disadvantage of being a freeholder. So advantages, just to recap, you've got a lot more freedom because you're going to own the land that the building's on or the home's on. You're going to own the building itself. And then with the exception of any covenants that there may or may not be on the land, speak to your legal team about that. You're pretty much going to have that freedom. You're not going to have to, get permission to do things if you want to put up a picture frame, for example, in your home, you're not going to have to get permission from yourself to do that. You might need to get permission from your wife, though, just in case. So let's flip that onto leaseholds. So there are some good advantages of leaseholds. There are some disadvantages, as we've just seen. So the disadvantages of leaseholds is that they normally come with ground rent, they normally come with service charges. So if you're operating it from a landlord point of view, then as well as your mortgage costs, letting agents fees, if you employ lettings agent, you've then got to factor in your ground rent, you've then got to factor in your service charges as well. And that can have an impact on your yield, that can have an impact on your cash flow. If you are operating just as a homeowner, again, the same principle applies. You're going to have your mortgage, you're going to have your ground rent, you're going to have your service charges. That's going to impact on your outgoings per month. And you might find that that's just very disadvantageous to your financial situation. Advantages of leaseholds are that if you are in a block of flats and they're built properly and you haven't got these cladding issues or anything like that, one of the advantages is if something disastrous did happen, then you are more than likely not going to be on the hook 100% for that. So let's just say you live in a block of flats and the roof falls off. Now, because of the service charge pools and all of that sort of stuff, chances are, let's just say the roof falls off and it costs £100,000 to put back on, then you're not going to be liable for that, the whole of that £100,000. You might find that the block management company is going to be liable for that, and yet your service charges that you've been paying, are going to contribute to that. So you've kind of got that weight taken off your shoulders for a little bit. If something really bad would happen, it's normally the freeholder's responsibility to sort out, so you can relax a little bit. Same with, I don't know, it all depends on the contract that you sign and all depends on the terms and conditions of your contract when you buy that home. That's why you need a power team. That's why you need to be asking these questions. So that's a big advantage, sorry, for a leasehold. Is if stuff goes wrong, Normally, if stuff goes wrong with a building, for example, normally that's not your responsibility unless it's written into the contract. That's normally not your responsibility. You're not going to be on the financial hook for that. Again, please speak to your solicitor before that. Don't just take my advice to it, but the generic idea is you're not on the hook for that. The disadvantages are that you're going to have more costs. So you're going to have your mortgage, you're going to have your ground rent, you're going to have your service charges, and that can add up. As a homeowner, that can add up. As a landlord, that can add up as well. Another big disadvantage from a tenant's point of view, sometimes from a homeowner's point of view, if you live in a block of flats, you're going to need permissions to do things. I've got a family member that lives in a very long leasehold building, and it's not ideal that they have to ask permission to, if they need to change a window, or they need to change a door, or they want to do this, or they want to do that, or they're looking to do this, or they're looking to do that. They've got to get permission from the freeholder every single time. And surprise, surprise, the freeholder charges a fee for that application to be made. So that's not very good. That's not a healthy system as far as I'm concerned. Other disadvantages of leaseholds are that you only have that land or that building for a set period of time. Normally leases are 125 years. You can get some very long leaseholds which are 900 plus years. That's almost as good as a freehold. The chances are you're going to have to factor in renewing that lease in due course, and again, that's got a cost to it. Not ideal. This is why most people that we speak to prefer freehold. You've just got that freedom, you've got that flexibility to be able to do things. You don't have to ask many people if you need to do something, which is good. Of course, if you are looking to build extensions or build on a plot of land, please go through the necessary channels. We're not saying to you just go and build unnecessarily and don't go to planning. If you need to go to planning for something, please go to planning. Please do it legally, as we've always taught you on Property Nomads. But in general, with freehold, you do have that flexibility of that you had that freedom. Disadvantages are that if something does go wrong, you're going to be on the hook for that. Unless your insurance could cover it for whatever reason, you're going to be on the hook for that. So the cost is on you. There's no ground rent, there's no service charges. Happy days for freeholders. Go on to the leaseholders. Again, the big advantage is if something happens to the building, you're probably not going to be on the hook for that, which is good for your back pocket. The disadvantages are your leases are going to have to be renewed at some point. You're going to have ground rent, you're going to have service charges. So as a homeowner, you've got more costs. From a landlord point of view, you've also got more costs. Then you've got to work in how does that affect your yield? How does that affect your cash flow when it comes to operating flats and apartments? Ultimately, the decision is yours. It's completely up to you. We're just here to share the information and say, here are some advantages and disadvantages of both. You have to do what's right for you. You have to do what's right for your portfolio. And that really is the most important thing at the end of the day. Thanks for listening to Property Nomads. For more information, please do go and head over to our website, sign up for the newsletter. We send you some information once a month, so we're not spamming you as quite a few people do. We only send you once a month. Go and subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already done so. Please leave us a review as well. The podcast reviews are really, really useful. They help to spread Property Nomads, help to get us out there even more so. So we would really like it if you could subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Also go ahead and head off to our YouTube channel, where we produce a lot of other content as well. Use the notification bell on YouTube to get alerted to when new content comes out. Thank you for listening. We will see you in the next episode.